So hello and welcome to J Designs. Today we're going to be talking about this cool thing right here. I think it's cool, maybe you don't, but this is a custom flatbed that I've created. It's been on the truck for about a year now, and this flatbed is actually about to get decommissioned. Don't ask me if I'm selling it, it's not for sale. There's a few parts that I'm going to save on this flatbed and is going to go to the new flatbed. That's why this one's going away, and that's why I wanted to do this review right now, because it's not going to exist much longer. That's going to go get scrapped. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start on probably the driver's side of the truck and work around the flatbed. I'm going to show you all the features. Yeah, let's get started. So I think starting out, this weird design on the top here. So this rack was originally going to go all the way across, but I didn't like the look of it, so now it's just two big verticals right there, and what it's housing on top for now is a couple Baja Designs S1s. You can see I've got a couple of open spaces there. These are absolutely amazing at night, that you can shoot light sideways off of the truck, obviously controlled from the interior there. That's the reason for this very weird looking rack right here. Moving down, there's a little red light there, a little button right there, and that triggers the red rock lights. When it gets a little bit darker here, I'll show you all the lights on this guy, but that is super handy to have, to be able to trigger the rock lights from outside of the truck when you're camping and stuff like that, and just throw light all around the truck. Moving down from that, I guess we'll talk about this guy here. So you'll notice this bed is not completely flat, but I do call it a flatbed. I guess we'll get into this now. The main reason why this flatbed was built is I was designing a camper, and then the process of designing that camper, a long time ago, I realized that the camper was going to be much better with a flatbed or on a flatbed than it was to use the factory truck bed. So I built this. The main reasons for that is, one, the bed sides were just straight up in the way for a ton of things, like just basic accessibility to the camper. The other things is the factory bed that came on this 2012 Toyota Tacoma. I think I have another video talking about this, but that factory bed in the bed sides, I think I did the calculation on it, was something like 22 gallons of wasted volume inside of each bed side. So we're have way more usable space with this flatbed versus the factory bed, but this is the same width as the factory bed. So that's super cool. It's also easier just to build on a huge square than it is to kind of build in the constraints of a factory bed. So this is going to give me a ton of free space for the camper build that is to come. So that's why this bed is not entirely flat. Oh, the other thing too is most people build their flatbed to the height of these fenders right here. So it'd be flat, the whole bed floor would be up here, a whole 9 inches higher. That's the height of this guy here. And what that would do for the camper is a couple of things. Everything in the camper would get pushed up 9 inches. So that would raise the center of gravity of the camper and obviously hurt performance both on and off road. The other thing it would do is it would push all of the camper components that are over the cab even higher into the airflow. That means worse range and worse fuel economy, and that's terrible when you're traveling, because when you're traveling, that is the biggest expense. It is fuel. Anyways, moving down from this guy here, this is the fuel filler neck. It's just open. That's actually how it is on factory Toyota Tacomas. It was shortened, I think, about 2 inches, because I wanted the camper to slide in just above this line here, and the fuel filler neck, I think, sat up about right here. So it was actually shortened and re-welded. Obviously a little cutout there for the fuel door. It's got these little wings here that actually closes in the bed. If we move a little further down, right behind this door, I'll pull it off and get you some B-roll later, but right behind that door is the actual starting battery. So that's been relocated from the front to back here. I have more videos going into this, but essentially the ideal behind that is that taking weight off of the nose of the truck and moving it a little further backwards, one, counteracts the absurdly heavy weight that is that rear solid axle, and two, it allows the front end of the truck to respond a little bit faster to your driver inputs, just because there's not so much weight hanging over the nose. So that's why the battery's there. We'll also get to it at the rear of the truck. I have a remote mount winch. We'll talk about that a little bit later. One of the reasons why this flatbed isn't going to be sold is because I'm going to reuse this fender right here, and I'm going to reuse this rack. This rack and these two fenders were extremely expensive to produce. I don't remember how much time was spent on them, but it was a lot. And the material costs have just gone up since I built this thing, so I don't really feel like rebuilding these guys, and the design of them is good enough. You can see these guys have been super banged up. The fenders do stick out a little bit, no more than factory. You can see right here on the fenders, this guy's actually dented in. The beauty of these guys is I'll usually just go put a wrench on here and bend them back out when I crash them into something. And like all of these scratches right here was from it dragging on, I think that was a concrete pylon under a bridge actually. It was slipping over sideways into it and I was like, yeah, just let it drag. Don't worry about it. So there's the fenders. Mud flaps right here. These guys are actually really awesome. There's actually just 2 bolts on the back of here and I carry the wrench inside the cab of the truck. If you get into kind of like a technical obstacle where maybe you're backing up into something and it's hitting the mud flap, it would normally pull the mud flap underneath the tire and rip the mud flap off. So they're pretty quick and easy to remove. It's just 2 bolts, they pop off, they go right, they actually are keyed into the fender here. And then moving up from that, you'll see this guy here. This is really not like part of the flatbed, but essentially it's just a quick connect air chuck. And then that has a little short air line that goes to the tires. So there's air lines ran all around the truck and that allows me to air up the tires from inside the cab with a little short line. You can sit in there with the AC running. There's a pressure gauge in there. I have a whole video explaining the really cool air system that's on this truck. So moving a little further back here, we're going to talk about the bumper as well. That's part of the flatbed effectively. So these are diode dynamics. Some things don't really like them, to be totally honest with you. I far prefer Baja Designs. It's up there. And you'll see right there as well, there's a rock light. I'll show you those again when it gets a little darker. This little notch out here saves like 1 pound per side, and it took probably like an hour to do that. I don't remember. You also see these guys here. So it's got holes. In the building of this flatbed, I was using the factory hitch was on there, and there were some holes in the factory hitch, and when I was strapping stuff down, it was super useful to have the little holes that were on the back of the factory hitch. So I built that into this bumper as I was making it. These are not for D-rings, they're not rated for that. What I use for that is I just run it's a Factor 55 flat link soft shackle, or you can put a hard shackle in there, and that is my rear recovery point essentially. I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I also run a rear winch on this guy, so it just goes right in the back of the hitch. And then shoehorned right down there is an Anderson plug, so that's an electrical connection. That takes power all the way from the front of the truck, where the battery used to be, and runs a wire all the way back to that guy. So that's why, another reason it didn't really hurt me to take the battery and move it backwards, because I was already going to be running electrical lines to the back of the truck. If you want to, eventually I'll do a video of the differences between a remote mount winch versus a hard mount winch. So a hard mount winch is just a winch in a bumper essentially. A remote mount winch would be something that would go in a hitch. So that's how mine is. It can go on the rear hitch or it can go the front hitch. Let me know if you want to see a video comparing those two, because obviously I have the ability to do both. I can just have the winch mounted in the front hitch all the time, or I can have the winch mounted back here, or interior of the cab, or just sitting at home when I'm not needing it. So going on in the flatbed, you've probably already seen it, but these are just turn signals, so they're not super interesting. They were like $5, but they're double stacked to get good brightness, and this is probably my favorite feature of the whole truck. Hopefully you can see that. It's not dark enough to really see that good yet, but that is a rear light bar. I think it took me like 2 days to build this guy, and I've built 2 of them. This is the second one I've built. Tremendously long time. I think it was like 2 days to build this rear light bar, but I absolutely love it. Again, you'll be able to see it better when the sun goes down a little more. Moving down from the rear light bar, so all of the wiring, there's actually a little bracketry up under here. Probably doesn't look clean from this angle, but you can't normally see this stuff. It's all kinds of little bracketry that retains wiring up in here, and then here is the factory 7-pin trailer connector. Normally that sits like down here, super low and far back, and it pretty much gets banged off on every truck that goes off-road. Factory camera's been retained. This is a dash cam. License plate would be here. You can see the lights there. This was actually one big mistake and something I'm going to fix on the new flatbed. So you can see the light bracket that would shine on the license plate is actually hanging over the bed of the flatbed. So if I'm ever loading anything, you'd end up smacking that guy. That was a mistake I made. I was building the flatbed, and I remember, I think, galvanizing it, so it's kind of like a primer, but it prevents rust. Doing that and then seeing this bracket and being like, oh, license plate brackets. The license plate brackets are in the wrong spot. They should have been back like an inch, actually recessed underneath the flatbed, so they couldn't be hit as I'm loading stuff in here. Oh, I almost forgot about this because I really don't care about it, but right here, there's a little slit right there, and that was actually for a rear tailgate. I don't really need that rear tailgate. I did design it in from day one, but I don't think I've ever actually needed the additional like foot or whatever that would give me on the back of the bed. So when I designed the new flatbed, I'm just not going to design that feature into the bed because that took a lot of additional effort to build that feature into it and make sure the tailgate would clear the lights and all that stuff. Also here, this is not really related to the flatbed. Eventually I'll do a full walk around of the truck, but right there, this truck has airbags. What I actually want to do in the future is use the airbags to raise and lower the back of the truck, and with that, we should be able to set the camper legs and offload the camper without using camper jacks. We're just going to use the airbags. Hopefully that works. And then moving down this side of the truck, same thing as the other side. We've got 3 mounting positions for lights. Largely the same on this side, except we've got these guys. So hopefully you can see that. It says ARB. Those are twin breathers for an ARB twin compressor that's mounted underneath the truck, and that is pretty much the driver of the entire air system on this truck. It runs the airbags, and it inflates these 35s pretty darn quickly. Again, I have a video on the whole air system on this truck. And then also, because I live in a very humid environment, that little guy there is a dryer. I almost missed one of the most important features in the bed, and you see these lines that go all the way down the bed. So these are mounting systems. I have a whole nother video on these guys. It's pretty much just a track, and you can move a little clip in it up and down these tracks, and it gives you so much versatility when it comes to mounting stuff in this bed, and pretty much anything that goes in this bed gets strapped down. But anyways, this is one of the most important features of the bed, and they're a little bit structural in theory, helping the rigidity of the bed. All right, so let's talk about why this flatbed is getting decommissioned. Hands down, the biggest reason why this flatbed is getting decommissioned is because I want to fit a 35-inch spare tire in the factory location. I was originally going to mount the spare tire right here on the back of the camper once that was built, but it's not really ideal to put a spare tire right there. I'll do a video at some point of why I hate rear swing out tire carriers, or not hate, they have their reason, but I'm not a big fan of them. Essentially having weight back here is not good for vehicle dynamics, handling, stuff like that. Anyways, we're going to take the 35 and put it underneath the flatbed that's coming. And the reason why I need to build a new flatbed for that is because there's a big cross member. This is the factory spare right here. It's like a 31 or something like that. If you try to cram a 35 under there, it comes down super far and totally renders like your off-road performance. It affects it badly. But essentially that factory spare is held up by a big cross member under there. So essentially what I need to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to pull this flatbed off, I'm going to cut that cross member completely out of the truck's frame, and then we're going to build that cross member into the new flatbed. And then when I get these 35s, not only is it going to be in the factory location, it's going to make more room for it, but also it's going to take that 35 and locate it higher up. When it's done, I've measured it out. The 35 will be at the same height as the factory 31 that's there. The 35's being wider and the factory tire being narrower, but I'm gonna move it up as high as I possibly can. It's gonna pretty much sit on the frame or the substructure of the bed. It's gonna be pretty interesting. It's gonna be a big job to actually cut across the out of the frame and build it into the bed, but I'm up for it. The performance benefits are there for me. It's worth it. Another couple things we got to fix about the flatbed. There's just little stuff like this that I just missed in planning something like this is huge. We're going to omit those hinges. I think I talked about that earlier. The license plate position will be corrected. There's a couple of other brackets I'd like to add to the underside of this. I think I'm also going to go away from this rear bar that I custom built. It looks super nice, but you can just buy those bars that would traditionally go between the tailgate and the bumper. Obviously I have neither left, but I can just use one of those bars to go across here. The other thing too, you probably can't see it on camera, but the whole thing's bowed. It's not a huge deal. It doesn't affect anything. When I bolted it to the truck bed, it pretty much entirely, or excuse me, when I bolted the bed to the truck's frame, it pretty much entirely straightened it out. But it's something that does bother me. You can't see it unless you know, unless you're me. That's why it bothers me. I don't think anyone else knows that, but now the whole internet does. But anyways, the primary reason why this bed is getting rebuilt and scrapped is so I can get a 35-inch tire in the factory location. So talking about a couple of questions that people had. So some people did ask about MPG. I monitor my MPG pretty frequently with an OBD reader that goes up under into your OBD port, and that allows me to look at fuel economy because this truck didn't come with a fuel economy gauge from factory. The flatbed has not affected fuel economy at all. So on forum posts, places like that, some people, very few, but some people have been like, hey man, you've ruined your truck. Saying that there's no bed. Obviously you can't haul anything in the back of that. I'm not just saying this because I've built a flatbed and I've been living with this for 2 years. I can honestly say that I have not missed bed sides one bit. There's maybe been like 1 or 2 loads over 2 years where it would have been like beneficial to have bed sides, but I absolutely still got by not having them. And to be honest with you, I don't want bed sides on another truck. I think if I have any more trucks in the future, I will convert all of them to flatbeds. Honestly, the bed sides are just in the way, especially if you're lifting your truck or putting it on bigger tires. So normally the bed sides were about here. It was right below the window and it came all the way across. And you look at the kind of difference in height between the fender. It's a pain in the butt to like reach up over. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, but I'm not exactly short. It's a pain in the butt to actually reach over that bedside and get something out of your bed or put something in there. And obviously here, this back does not have bed sides. So you can just completely lean over into the bed and access the middle of the bed. Like, it's not that hard. Bed sides are just in the way. They're a waste of space. Oh, another thing that was super cool, visibility. So you can't really see it, but your mirror from all the way back to that mirror to the edge of the bed, or where your tailgate would be, it's like 9 feet. And if you draw like, you know, a triangle, if you were to draw kind of a triangle, do some mental trigonometry here. If you were to draw a line like this and see where it hits that tailgate, and it would end up way back here. So there's a huge pocket behind the truck where you can't see because the freaking tailgate and bed sides are in the way. With this, it's so much lower. It probably is about like right here. So I have a very, very small blind spot behind the truck. You don't realize that's really an issue until I built this. And I was like, oh crap, I can see so much more behind this truck looking through the rear view mirror. Some people have asked how this Araby Twin's been doing. So I do need to do a video on that. We're gonna drop that guy down from there, tear it down while the bed is apart, and check out all the electrical connections, see if there's any corrosion from it living literally outside for 2 years. Make sure and stay tuned for that. All right, it's a little darker now. Hopefully you can see that. That is one of my favorite features of the entire truck. I always want to call it a lightsaber tail light. That's what it looks like to me. Sweet. Love this thing. All right, I hear you. It's light show time. Oh, boy. I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I love how that thing looks. What do you think? And I didn't mount the stupid rock lights in the fender like everyone else does. I understand it's just kind of easier to mount. We'll talk about these fenders because everyone has these fenders. I understand it's easier to just mount your rock lights up in the fender, but all that does is it just your tire just casts a big old shadow in front of your rock light. People, put them in front of your tires and behind your tires. In front of your tire, behind your tire. It works way better. So in the future, when I get the second flatbed done for this guy, I will do a full walk around of the truck. There's some pretty unique things on this guy. First off, 35s. Secondly, no lift. Thirdly, it's actually got coilovers in the front. They're really trick Bilstein 8100s. Bypass technology, super cool stuff. If you don't know what that is, that's all I'll say. There's a lot of other unique features about the truck. It's got airbags in the back. I think I talked about that before. I want to use the airbags to load and unload the camper. And it's got a cool flatbed build and a bunch of other things about this truck. So make sure and stay tuned. We'll do a full rig walk around on this guy soon. And also, when the flatbed's done, I was gonna say I'm starting that camper build, but I actually have aluminum rock sliders on there that I built, and I wanna rebuild a set of steels. So that's gonna be the next build after the flatbed. Then we start the camper. It's gonna be super cool. It's gonna have a ton of solar. I've already got a big battery bank for it, and it's gonna have friggin' AC in the camper. That's going to be amazing. I know I'm wearing sandals in this one. I actually weld in sandals, believe it or not. I live in Florida. It is stupid hot in here. It is like 8 o'clock at night and there's like 90% humidity. Anyways, I think I'm ranting now. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed. If you got any questions, leave them below. I love all the comments. I love the criticism too, actually. You guys are the ultimate check on me. Thanks for watching. And remember, your dreams don't die until you let them.